How about that cigar?
How about that cigar?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. It is Tuesday. It's our favorite night of the week. We hope it's your favorite night of the week as well. As always, guys, we are so grateful that you are here with us on How About That Cigar Live, whether you're watching on Facebook, watching on YouTube, or listening after the fact on the audio podcast. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. Give us a minute, if you would, please share us out to your favorite Facebook cigar groups, YouTube cigar groups, and if you're listening on the audio podcast, give us a quick subscribe and give us a big, fat, beautiful 5-star rating. If you like what you hear, we appreciate it so much. And we want to tell you tonight that we are coming to you, as always, live from the Drew Estate Cigar Studios. And Drew Estate wants to tell you about the Leather Rose. Ooh. The latest addition to the Deadwood lineup, Leather Rose, is available now to all retailers nationwide. Mm-hmm. Uniting with her sisters, Sweet Jane, Fat Bottom Betty, and Crazy Alice, the spicy Leather Rose is the boldest lady of the bunch.
Ooh, she's bold.
The 5x54 Torpedo features a rich Maduro wrapper and proves to be the spiciest of the Deadwood family.
So naughty.
Lighting up the Leather Rose will fill the room with her exotic aroma, plus the effortless draw will leave you longing for more. Exotic. The Deadwood Leather Rose is a 5x54 Torpedo packaged in 24-count boxes and will be shipping in July. For more info, please visit drewestate.com. Mm-hmm. So, guys, we said it. We'll say it again. Thank you so much for joining us. This is episode 70. That is, my brain wants to explode when I just think about 70. You know, it's crazy. It's awesome. Thank you guys so much for, being a part of this show. We've loved it. We're going to keep doing it. We've been really fortunate to have awesome guests throughout the weeks, over this last year and a half or so we've been doing this. And it's all because of you guys that you continue to watch, you continue to listen. We appreciate it. As always, participate in the conversation tonight when we get our guest on with conversation, with questions, comments, things like that.
Let us know what you're smoking, drinking.
Yeah, let us know what you're smoking, drinking. So we talked about this last year in the baseball season. We, thank God, have a little bit of a baseball season again right now. Mm-hmm. Our team, our beloved Minnesota Twins, cannot beat the worst team in the division.
So the Royals.
The Kansas.
Why do they have our number?
They did last season too.
I know.
We just got swept by the worst freaking team in the division, and we've been running all over other teams.
Our bats have been hot.
So for some reason, we go to play Kansas City, and everybody just goes to sleep.
Yep.
I don't know what was going on. Pitching has not been solid at all. And the guys, Kepler just fell off the face of the earth.
Yep. Nelson Cruz.
Sano's been quiet. So although it's nice, I love having Buxton back.
Oh,
it's great to have him back.
It is.
And this pitcher, I'm so glad that we've got this the kid with the big old school mustache.
Oh, dude, that's right out of Major League.
It is. I love it. And he's got the big ugly glasses, and the the big handlebar mustache. And it's just, I love it.
Yep.
And for some reason, his name is escaping me right now.
I know, me too. Dobnik.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He's been really great, and hopefully, we did win against the
Brewers.
The Brewers yesterday. I think we're playing right now.
Yep, we're up 4-0.
So, there you go. So, but again, why? Because it's such a short season, when we get up to it in the end of this short season, the Yankees are playing phenomenal baseball right now.
Yep.
And if we can't even stand up against the worst team in the division, that being the Kansas City Royals,
we don't deserve it.
There's no way it's going to be just like last year. We're gonna face New York in the first round of the playoffs, and we're gonna get smoked.
Yep.
So they have to figure out a way to not fall asleep during what they consider to be, just a throwaway series with Kansas City. So, otherwise the Twins are doing well. So
11-6.
Yeah. Any other current event stuff? The Wild are terrible.
There's this little germ thing that's happening right now.
Yeah, there's this little germ thing. Some weird illness.
Yeah.
I heard something about
I did. Yeah.
Facebook or something.
Saw a meme.
I saw a meme, and it told me everything I need to know.
Yeah,
really.
that's where I get all my information.
Yeah, if you don't learn it from memes, you're getting bad info.
Fake news.
So just read the 2 lines of text on a meme and just take that as gospel, because it's all
go with that.
It's all true. So tonight, guys, like I said, we've been blessed and honored to have great guests throughout this journey, and we continue to have great guests. And tonight it is so cool because this segment of the show is always brought to you by a particular sponsor. And tonight it's awesome because this particular sponsor is also our special guest. Mm-hmm. So we're going to tell you right now that, as always, our special guest segment is brought to you by Corona Cigar Company and coronacigar.com. They are the internet's largest and easiest to use virtual cigar store. Corona Cigar Company offers you the finest handmade cigars, humidors, and cigar accessories at the absolute lowest possible price. And you'll also find unique and limited cigars containing Florida sun-grown tobacco. As a proud American, president and founder of Corona Cigar Company, Mr. Jeff Borysiewicz believed it was possible to bring cigar tobacco farming back to Florida. At Corona Cigar Company and coronacigar.com, you'll find the best selection anywhere in the world of cigars containing this special Florida sun-grown tobacco. If you live in Florida or are just visiting, be sure to visit any of the great Corona Cigar locations in downtown Orlando, Sand Lake, Lake Mary, and also the Davidoff of Geneva Lounge in Tampa. For more info, please visit coronacigar.com and floridasungrown.com. And like I said, without further ado, our special sponsor is also our special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Jeff Borysiewicz.
What's up, fellas?
Jeff.
That was a hell of an introduction. That was, I feel like the Price is Right or something getting ready to start, man. But good job.
Yeah, I want to scream, come on down. You are the next contestant on How About That Cigar?
All right. Well, good evening, fellas, and thanks for having me on the show. And congratulations on you said this is episode 70?
Yeah.
Nice.
And for those who have been with us, since or near the beginning, Jeff was one of our first guests early on, and it's awesome to always have returning guests, but also to see the growth of both How About That Cigar and our guests, and excited to get into what the last year has brought for you guys.
Well, I guess I'm an early adapter. I'm not the early adapter when it comes to technology, but I guess on these shows here, I recognize the talent quickly, and you guys are doing a great job.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. It means a lot.
It's cool because I went back and listened to or watched a little bit of the last time you were on. It was in September of last year, and I mean, there's no possible way that us regular folks could have predicted what things were going to be like. I mean, you watch, it's funny, only going back to September to think that we were going to have you on the show again in August and the world was going to be the way that it is right now. I mean, how have things been like for Corona Cigar and for the Florida Sun-Grown Farms during this crazy first, I don't know, close to 2/3 of 2020?
I kind of feel like it's an episode of Planet of the Apes, and one of these days we're going to wake up and we're going to be on a beach with the Statue of Liberty buried halfway in the sand, because this is a crazy year. But
and that scene reminds me of Spaceballs more than it does Planet of the Apes.
Well, there's a whole bunch of different movies we could tie this to. Terminator's coming next too, I believe that.
Yeah.
But anyway, Skynet's already active. We saw that a couple weeks ago when those doctors went on and did their press conference. But anyway,
yep.
There's a really weird scenario here. Corona Cigar with the the bars at all location and everything, and being in a urban area, downtown Orlando. I mean, right on what we call Main and Main Street. So City Hall's right across the street, and anytime there's any kind of parades or protests, they come right past the store. So it's been a weird time, but at the same thing, what's kind of ironic is that I can drive 55 minutes west and go to the farm in Claremont, and when you're amongst the tobacco plants or cattle or whatever, dude, these plants and animals have no clue what year it is, right? So it's kind of surreal how you can be working on tobacco or in a farm or whatever, and honestly you don't have any sense that there's anything wrong. whether it's with, the civil unrest, or whether it's with COVID, or whether it's, the terrible things that happen, people have gotten sick. But when you get to the farm, it's totally different. So it's really weird. It's a yin and yang. And so, but we have to watch it all. We have to watch everything that's going on. So it's a lot of balls to juggle, but we're doing all right.
And, we've talked to people throughout this year, during different stages of the quarantine and shelter in place and total shutdowns and everything in between. So what were the stages like, for the retail business and the farm, going all the way back to when they first said, okay, we're going to have to shut things down. There's going to be shelter in place. Businesses are going to have to be closed. And then as you guys were able to gradually reopen, whether it was curbside delivery, whether it was, and then being able to actually open the doors to customers and things like that. What were the stages like for you?
Well, for us, the stages were bad because for anything that has anything to do with restaurants, bars, or tourism, they got hit the hardest, so we got shut down early. We're still allowed to sell cigars, fortunately, but we closed our downtown store for over a month just because I know you guys are in Minneapolis. So you understand what it's like in downtown when they tell people to shelter in place, no one's on the streets. And so, we had photos of downtown Orlando, just like they did in Las Vegas, where it was, again, like Planet of the Apes, there wasn't a soul on the street. It was really scary. So our stores, our downtown store closed, but the other ones that were in Lake Mary and Sand Lake, which are in more of the suburbs, we remained open, but people couldn't stay. They could just buy cigars and leave. So there were some major challenges there, not just for, I think for me, the biggest thing was, what do you do with all the staff? We got 125 employees, so that was a real big challenge. And we wanted to keep everybody on payroll, and this way people to have their health insurance and didn't get canceled, especially during a time when you need it most. I don't know if anybody's ever been on Cobra before, but Cobra is totally it's unaffordable.
Many years ago, and it was terrible.
Yeah, when you get an insurance notice, where you used to pay whatever, $50 a pay period for your health insurance, and all of a sudden they tell you it's going to be $250 a pay period, and it's like, dude, it's nuts. But anyway, we did a paycheck protection program, which helped out tremendously. We were able to keep everybody on payroll through the whole period, even though every bar was shut down. And so, listen, it is what it is. Florida reopened, and then all of a sudden they took it away again as far as the bars go. So it's been a little tricky. And
did you go the PPP route?
Yeah, we did, and fortunately we got one. That was
awesome.
And it was tricky because we were into it payroll for 3 weeks, paying people when the stores were closed.
Yeah.
And not knowing whether PPP was going to happen or not.
Right.
So there's a point where it's real money, and so and then our stores are really expensive, the rent. So anyway, we'll make it. We're well diversified and fiscally responsible company. And on the flip side, mail order has been on fire, and so that's helped us with coronacigar.com. It was blowing up through all of this. But I will say this, I'd much rather have people be able to go to their local cigar shop and have a cigar in their store versus what they had to do. I understand a lot of stores are opening up, but there's still challenges there. So we're working through it. You asked about the farm. There was absolutely no difference on the farm. As a matter of fact, what was interesting, even during all the stay-at-home orders and everything, we actually got something from the Florida Department of Agriculture, which is like kind of like a permission slip, like if you missed school, saying, hey, here's your permission slip for missing school. This was a permission slip that if you have a farm, that you can be on the road and driving and all that other kind of stuff. So farms were totally exempt, 100% exempt from any kind of shutdowns, no matter what, because at the end of the day, even though we're not growing food, but actually we are with our cattle, we grow we're providing a lot of beef, but at the end of the day, the food supply, as we all saw, we thought toilet paper is important, but actually food is the most important thing, right? So farms were totally exempt from any stay-at-home orders because we got to eat.
Yeah. And did you find that? Actually, one question I have is, as far as the tobacco growing operation goes, I know in some countries they do 2 cycles a year. Do you guys do 2 harvests or just a single?
No, we do 2 cycles a year now too.
Okay.
And we started that a couple years ago after we lost the crop in the spring. It was before last year's barn smoker. So we had to plant the crop late. And the only time you can't really grow at all is right now during the summer months in Florida, June, July, August. It rains all the time, and your tobacco it'll get ruined with so much rain. But we grow 2 smaller crops instead of 1 larger crop. We grow 2 smaller ones, one in the spring, one in the fall. That way, if we have a problem in the spring, like a bad hailstorm or real bad thunderstorms or something goes wrong that destroys the crop, we can plant in the fall and just make up. So we're just a little more diverse by having it twice a year, and also it helps spread the workload at the farm too, so that you can have guys that are working year round, which is the biggest struggle for any farm.
Yeah.
You do, especially like where you guys are at up in Minnesota. It's like, what does a farmer do when the ground's frozen? You know what I mean? So that's why places like Minnesota, you guys are growing a lot of grain and stuff like that. And but when it comes to like row crops, which is what tobacco is, which requires tons and tons of labor, what do you do with people when you have nothing growing? And so that's why it's a challenge.
Yeah, up here it's almost similar to guys who are in the landscaping and landscape maintenance racket up here. If they own a business that mows lawns or installs retaining walls or sod and that kind of thing, then during the winter months they'll do snow removal.
Yes.
So they'll plow, they'll get bucket loaders and dump trucks and remove excess snow from city streets and things like that. So they're always able to have kind of shift things from a seasonal perspective.
And for us, that's why, and that's a great example. So what we had done was we got involved years ago. We started building up a beef cattle operation. So that way we have work to do in the summertime or in between when we don't have tobacco in the ground. So that's why I did that, so that we could have some key guys working, 365 days or whatever, year round.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to know is, this could be a question that would affect, future business. So feel free to say or don't want to answer, but I'm curious about the supply and demand thing, when it comes to growing your crop and then once the crop is ready for sale to whoever, are you, and it is early as far as that goes, but are you seeing any early indicators that there's not going to be as much demand for the tobacco as there was in previous years?
No, what we've done is we've diversified the portfolio that we sell them in too. So you got FSG by Drew Estate. We have our Corona 20th anniversaries that use it. We have several smaller projects too, like the American with JC Newman that uses the wrapper. And then we have Z from Finca Santa Fe that does our Finca Santa Fe FSG. And then finally, we've been running out of these things forever, but I'm smoking one of our FSG farm rolls. And that's something we've never been able to keep in stock, but hopefully now we're going to be able to keep these going. It's still small production, but this uses tobacco that's aged in our single barrel bourbon barrels right there on the farm in the barrels. And so we've got a lot of unique stuff. So fortunately, we haven't had that problem, and we can always, the intention of growing tobacco in Florida has always been, it's like a micro brewery or a micro distillery. And that was always from day one, just because it's so expensive to do this in America. That's why there's nobody that does this, right? But you can do it if it's a small production. So that's why when we have one tobacco barn and we want to fill it. So every year we grow between 4,000 and 5,000 pounds a year. So if we do 2 crops, that's 2,500 pounds in the spring, 2,500 pounds in the fall. So that's how we do it, and it's worked out well for us.
And so with everything going on, how has it changed any of your R&D and new products that you might be either launching or looking into? What has that done for you guys over the last, handful of months?
Well, FDA is the one that's the 800-pound gorilla in the room on all of us. So it depends on, we're plugging away as if FDA regulations are not going to come down on us, that we're going to beat them in court, or we're going to beat them somehow through political pressure. So, we're continuing with other projects that we've had always in the, let's say, in the long-term plan. So there's a lot of, that's always been something what made the cigar industry interesting. If it wasn't for the new stuff that was always coming out, the industry, I don't want to say it'll get a little stale, but people like to see new expressions and new blends and new tobaccos and things like that. So it was always in the plan to have sort of a gradual rollout of stuff. But we were never, FSG was never about just coming up with gimmicky stuff, and doing like silly things, just like, I don't know, changing something on a box, even though the cigars are the same. We're not about that. So it's always been the slow and steady, but and keep it real concept. And that's what we want to do. And remember, the good part is that primarily we're retailers. Corona Cigars is a retail company with, beautiful stores and cigar bars. The FSG was brought on as a sort of just to bring something back that's totally unique.
Right.
So, if it's like whatever, like let's say Budweiser that's selling their Bud and Bud Light, but then, they want to bring on some cool little projects too that keeps things fresh. So for us doing the FSG and doing the farms and stuff, it was more of just let's keep that little bit of the American history rolling here. Just the same way, it's the exact same thing what Drew Newman's doing in Tampa with the American.
Yeah.
They he's got two rollers rolling the cigars, and it's all about keeping the cigar going in the cigar city of Tampa. So it's hand in hand what we're doing.
Well, and that American is a nice cigar. We smoked it and reviewed it on the website last year, and it is. I mean, you hear unique a lot, where maybe sometimes it doesn't apply, but I really in that American it genuinely applies.
100%.
It's unique and I like the term that you used, Jeff, a new expression, when it comes to new brands or new projects and things like that. And the American really is one of those genuine examples of a new expression of hand rolled tobacco.
What's interesting about that is that it's 100% new to us. However, it may or may not have been used 125 years ago, back when Florida was producing lots of cigar tobacco and exporting it. Let's call it exporting it to other states. There were cigar factories everywhere.
Yeah.
And, Pennsylvania and Connecticut were growing a lot of tobacco too. So there were cigars made back in those days using American tobaccos. And it was actually really interesting. A lot of those old cigars from 125 years ago, they also used tobacco from Wisconsin. They used tobacco from Maryland. There's something called Maryland shoestring tobacco, which I'd love to try and find that. Because it's a really, if you ever look at a picture of something called Maryland shoestring tobacco and you see the leaves, you'd be like, wow, that's weird looking. The leaves are long and narrow, like a corn plant. So anyway, it's just there's some cool stuff that was going on back then that you and I will never get a chance to have. And so bringing back the Florida tobacco and working with it the way it's been, anything that we're going to do with Florida Sun-Grown tobacco, it's going to be unique because it hasn't been out for so long.
Yeah.
And the tobacco that was grown in Florida was primarily shade. The Cuban tobacco, the Cuban seed tobacco that was grown in Florida was done in the 1800s to about 1905. So, and that's what we grow. We grow the Cuban seed stuff. So the stuff we grow hasn't been around for 120 years.
Yeah.
And as a reminder for our viewers and listeners, we had Jeff on last September, and he goes into an origin story and talks about, both the Corona Cigar Company and the Florida Sun-Grown farms and everything. Please go back, take a watch, and listen to that to, kind of fill in the gaps of where our conversation is going.
The only other person that can babble longer on tobacco, and especially on seed variety, is Steve Saka. That guy can go for
Yeah.
3 hours.
It was
Probably 6 hours actually.
Yeah.
But he's really good on that stuff. So
He
anyway,
is.
he's an
but we can.
encyclopedia.
He is, especially when it
we,
comes to a lot of all the other varieties. He's done a lot of research on that.
Yeah, we did sort of a mini masterclass with him when we had him on the show.
Yep.
Because we had this article that actually was sent to me by Skip Martin. Sent me this article that Steve Saka wrote for Cigar Magazine.
Yeah.
Back in 2007.
That's right. It was a fantastic article. One of the best ever written.
It was perfectly detailed, going across every varietal and growing region and things like that. So we kind of had him take us through that article point by point and sort of teach us. And we barely. And the funny thing is, in an hour and a half long show, we barely even
scratched the surface. Yeah.
But it was.
Guess what chapter he missed in that article? The Florida chapter, because nobody was growing it then. I'm telling you, people didn't know about this stuff because we got a generation gap in here. So really, the only guys that knew about it were like Eric Newman, because they were using Florida tobacco back. Their factory's been around for 125 years. So you'd have to talk to somebody that's been in it generationally. And there's a few guys that are still around that were involved in that. Like last night, Christian Rose, Fowler, Julio Roa. He used to work in the Florida tobacco farms too. So there's still a few old guys around that literally experienced working with it and smoking it.
Real quick, a viewer question: what is the price point on that farm rolled? And
$10.
$10.
Yeah, it's $10, and they sell out quickly. But we just got, because we only have 2 people, local Florida guys, that roll them, and so it's real limited production. But if you get a chance, they're on the website. We have them in the stores, but they sell out pretty quickly. But it's true. It's 100% Florida tobacco right out of our barn. So wrapper binder filler, and it's rolled without a mold. So it's like a freehand type of cigar, and it's cured tobacco, but not fermented. So it's just gone through an aging process and curing process in our barns. So it's extremely unique.
I have not had one.
Well, we got to get you one.
Yeah.
These so Garrett and I tonight, we fired up the beautiful FSG, and
that's the Bellicoso, right?
Yeah, I got the Bellicoso. Garrett's smoking the Toro, and when these first because Drew Estate handles distribution of this product for you guys, right? Correct. Yep. Yeah. So when these were first announced, I want to say 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
Yeah. They made a big splash, that year. This is also one of those, because of that Florida sun-grown tobacco, it is definitely a noticeable difference, from kind of the norm. Because for those of us who are cigar nerds like us, we smoke a lot of cigars, and we can tend to get caught in this sort of, I don't want to say rut, but we get in this pattern of smoking similar wrapper styles, similar flavor profiles, things like that. And when you get into something like this, that genuinely puts you into a different place, it puts your palate in a different place. It's a lot of fun to smoke, and it's fun also. I'm smoking this and then drinking some. I was really into this plantation rum. Yeah, and I just got, this is the special edition, the Fiji edition, that's got the little blue secondary label on it. And this is another one of those examples where there's something just a little bit different about this varietal versus just the regular Plantation XO. And pairing that with this FSG cigar changes things completely. And it's fantastic. It's a great change, because I get all this kind of sweet and sour play, with the rum and the cigar. I just dig it. It's awesome.
Well, that sounds like a great pairing. I haven't tried that. I end up pairing mostly with single malt Scotch and bourbon, and I have a lot of dark rums, but I haven't smoked an FSG with a dark rum yet, so I'm going to try that. But you know what we did recently was really cool, and I don't think we have any left. But did you guys see that FSG, the beer we did, the Imperial Stout?
I do remember seeing it on Instagram.
Yep.
So I did one. It was really cool. We do a lot of single barrel bourbons, and so we working with a local brewer in Sanford, Florida, and we sent them one of our bourbon barrels, and they made a special. Hey, my wife is here too. You want to say hi real quick, Tanya? There you should. Anyway, so the imperial the imperial stout that we had made with the Florida with the bourbon barrel. My God, it turned out so good. Let me tell you, that was one of the COVID was bad, right? Shut a lot of places down. What was interesting, we had this beer sitting in this barrel that was gonna go for 90 days, but because of COVID, this stuff went almost 6 months.
Oh.
And man, when it came out of the barrel, man, it was amazing. I'm telling you, it was amazing. And so we paired it with the FSG cigar. It was something else. But the problem is with one barrel of bourbon, 150-gallon barrel, doesn't produce that much beer when you're selling them in those big giant bottles, right?
Yeah.
So it's sold out really quick. But
absolutely.
we're doing a couple more of those. So that was a really interesting pairing. But so anyway, I got off on a tangent with the pairing there, but that was you just reminded me of it.
And I'm gonna continue to piggyback on that because pairing is so fun. And if you guys haven't really done a lot with pairing, I encourage you to. A friend of ours in the MHC community, Minnesota Herf Connection, introduced me or let me know about this tea that's aged in oak whiskey barrels, bourbon barrels. And it already uses if you know what Lapsang Shulong tea is, it's a black tea from China, but they smoke it. So
really?
Yeah, so it's this black tea that's been smoked, and it has this natural smoky flavor. But then what they did was they aged it for 3 years in these oak.
3 years?
3 years.
Holy shit!
So obviously it's not cheap. However, it changed my life.
I bet that would be really good. I mean, I'm not a big tea drinker, but that sounds like it would be fantastic.
You guys,
anything that's smoked pairs well with a cigar.
Oh yeah,
honestly,
absolutely.
It doesn't matter what it is. Smoked meat, smoked fish, smoked anything with smokiness to it pairs really good with a cigar. So even like some of these small like mezcals and stuff, these not the cheap ones, the good ones, the small handcrafted ones, those pair nicely too. So yeah, play around with it, and that's it. We do so many different single barrel selections that we pair just for cigars. We have a Patron Añejo tequila that's amazing. It goes with cigars too, and it's aged in American bourbon barrels. So we've got a lot of different ones. In Corazon, we have one that takes stuff from the Buffalo Trace distillery, and we take our barrels and send them to Mexico, and they make tequila in that as well. So we've got a lot of different things that just it broadens that horizon and what makes cigars fun. So let's hopefully we can keep this going as long as the FDA doesn't try to spoil the party on us, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, well, we're definitely gonna get to the FDA in the discussion. I was curious though. You mentioned and we've heard from some other big retailers too, like Abe and Dave Garofalo. Some of the other big online retailers that some of the things that they've seen with their online sales during COVID. And I was curious to you, obviously you said that you've seen an uptick in online sales, but have you seen any changes over the last 6, 7, 8 months as far as brands, vying for position in bestsellers, or has that stayed relatively flat?
I wouldn't say it stayed flat, but here's the thing when it comes to, and this is why brick and mortar is really important, because brick and mortar is where people will take a chance on some new cigars, right? And so it's also part of the fun. Remember, walking into a cigar store and going into a humidor and looking at all the cigars and talking to cigars with the staff and with customers as well, other fellow cigar guys. That's what makes the experience fun. And so you'll pick up more new stuff. Like somebody will say, if you're smoking, let's say an FSG, and I'll be like, hey man, how you like those Liga Privadas too? And you guys just start talking, right? When you do mail order, there's a lot less trial and more of what's called brands that people are familiar with, because you don't want to, cigars are expensive. You don't want to buy a bunch that you don't like. And a lot of times, some of the samplers that are offered as, let's call them like teaser samplers, sometimes, you know, sometimes there's a few good ones in there and sometimes there's not. And
Yeah.
so people would rather, if you took price out of the equation, people would rather shop in a cigar shop and smoke and talk with other people. It's a social, smoking cigars is usually a social act. And so, that's, while mail order is growing and it's going to continue to grow, it's critical though that the country has a strong base of cigar retailers and cigar lounges. Now, in my opinion, we have seen some really nice cigar lounges and cigar bars open up across the country. And some of these have been made with significant investments. So what's important though is let's see what happens after COVID. That's why this COVID shutdown can be, if a bar is closed, we got some problems, and there's a lot of bars that are closed right now. So let's see where all this goes. But at the end of the day, we need brick and mortar. It's critical. And the industry needs it too. The cigar industry needs it, just like it needs mail order too, because there's a lot of volume through mail order. And don't forget, America's got some pretty remote areas, and people that live in cities don't realize how much of America is rural, and there is no cigar shop, right?
Right.
And you got some states where it makes it just impossible to even have a cigar shop because of the taxes that are crazy. And New York, I think, is going up to 75% over on wholesale price, and they just make it almost impossible for a retailer to survive. So it is tough, but at the same time, we need these shops, and especially I get excited every time I see a nice cigar bar opening, because that is the key. You can't replace a cigar bar or cigar lounge with an online order. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
And we like the ability, we, meaning cigar consumers, all of us, we like that option, especially if I go to another town. I want to be able to meet friends and go have a cigar at the local cigar bar or cigar lounge.
Yeah.
So, it's an important part of what we do.
Yeah. And I agree with you that the lounge piece is something we can't forget about, because having a retail store is great. Having a location you can actually walk into a humidor, see the cigars, pick out a handful of singles, pick out your favorite box, whatever it is, and and take them home and smoke them. But the lounge piece it's just having that environment with the cigar community, to be able to gather together as a cigar community and smoke cigars and talk about the weather, talk about the game, talk about the election, talk about whatever it is. There's something so important about that. And you've got guys who are the members who have their lockers, the regulars, and then you've got the people who go in there, maybe once a month, and then you've got the new people that come in there, and the lounge is absolutely, and I don't want to get too poetic about it, but I honestly think that the cigar lounge is a vital piece of Americana.
Yeah. Well, and what and sorry to cut you off, Jeff. The thing that I love and I enjoy when I work at a retail shop is when somebody comes in and they say, "Well, I'm new to cigars, and I'm like excited for them,"
Yep.
And as much as I talk about the cigars, I say the culture is where this really blossoms, because is fantastic as these products are, and it's an endless supply of discovery, and it's a fun trip to go down. It's the people in this community that keep it alive and vibrant, and it's just corner to corner is amazing.
And we've got such a diverse customer group too, especially, now there's everything from all different ages and backgrounds and races and religion and political opinions. And in the cigar shop or the lounge is where people can have a civil conversation. And so and that's one of the things that there's not a whole lot of places left you can do that, but you certainly can at a cigar shop.
You can.
And that's one of the that's a great point about civil conversations, because having, as we've learned over the years, having a civil conversation over social media is it's difficult, if not impossible. But having a civil discussion about subjects that people even vehemently disagree, when you're face to face smoking a cigar and having a cup of coffee or a glass of bourbon or whatever it is, and it does, honestly, we're cigar nerds, so we love the cigars, but just having a face to face, even if you're just in a coffee shop together, having a cup of coffee, having a civil disagreement, there is something that makes the conversation civil when you're face to face, that when you're not face to face, the civility tends to go by the wayside.
That's right. It's because you got the keyboard cowboys. That's what I call it when people do that. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. So.
Well, we got a comment I got to put on screen here saying, "Don't take your lounges for granted. Here in the land of vegans and dope smokers, Canada, we don't have the option of visiting a lounge." And I feel bad for you that you don't even have the option. I mean, you could obviously have, set up your own lounge in your garage or your shed or your house, and you have friends over and things like that. But
not a true community
it's not
place.
Because you obviously the community of people that you invite to your own home cigar lounge is going to be relatively narrow, where if you go out to a lounge, and you're going to run into people that you've never met before, and people that maybe you'll run into somebody at a public cigar lounge that you never in a million years would have thought you'd sit down and have a conversation with. And next thing you know, you're 2 hours into a conversation about something that you both disagree on, but you're having a great time, and you just can't get that anywhere else.
Well, let me tell you what's crazy about the comment. That comment was from Vancouver, British Columbia. And I was in Vancouver last year, and you're right, it's hard to find a place to smoke cigars there. But it is a beautiful, now I was there in the summertime, so it wasn't freezing cold, but it is a beautiful city to smoke cigars. But the ironic part about Vancouver, it's easier to go sit on the street there and shoot up heroin than it is to go find a place to go smoke cigars. And that's what's crazy about what's going on in some places. However, I believe everything swings like a pendulum, and we're seeing, I've been in the business for 25 years, and I remember how cigar smoking was lumped in by people that just didn't know any better, that thought it was the same as smoking cigarettes. So, they're like, you shouldn't smoke, blah, blah, blah. And I really think that we've done a great job as an industry and as consumers to educate people that, Marlboros and Macanudos aren't the same thing at all, guys. And so people, once they realize that, and they're like, oh, I didn't know. You don't inhale a cigar? You mean you don't inhale it? I didn't know that. So that was probably 95% of the people would say that, right? And so we've gotten to where more people are educated about what the cigar lifestyle is. So I think that there's not as much fervent pushback to a cigar lounge as there used to be 20 years ago. Because everybody they were like, oh no, that's like having a cigarette bar or something. No, it's not. That's not what this is. Right. And so now that there are good examples for people to show. So let's say if you're in Minneapolis, and you say, listen, let me show you like what they're doing here and here in these other cities across America. They have these great lounges. Like, oh wow, that looks different. Okay, so tell me more about it. At least you can get to that point where in the past it was like, no, it's smoking, you can't do it, blah blah.
Tobacco.
Yeah. We have made some changes. This is a really interesting story. Our Davidoff store in Tampa, the landlord's there is an insurance company. And insurance companies are scared of their own shadows, and especially publicly traded. So you don't have like an owner to make a decision. You got these committees and boards and all this other stuff. Man, when we had to get it past the committee and the board and all this stuff, that this tenant is going to have alcohol and tobacco and smoking cigars, these guys were like, it took some convincing, but you know what convinced them? They visited every one of our Corona cigar stores. And once they came and they said, hey, we like that concept. We like what we're seeing. We like the type of clientele that's coming in. We like the community that is. So we got over that hurdle. And I think if we could get over that hurdle with an insurance company, you could probably get over that hurdle with just about anybody if you tell the story right.
Yeah.
And have the patience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and I agree with you that the consumer education piece. And here's the thing is that we've talked about a lot. It's not when we say consumer education, because that's why How About That Cigar started, was for consumer education. But we actually learned along the way that there's a broader piece to the consumer education element, and that is, it's not just about the people who are premium cigar consumers. It's about their family members and friends who don't understand the difference between a premium hand-rolled cigar and a cigarette or a vape or marijuana. Helping their, and even for myself, family members and friends who, are constantly, giving me that sort of side eye about cigars, and just trying to gently and kindly educate them, and sometimes they receive it, sometimes they don't, but just to help them understand, the difference between the way the product is made, the way the product's consumed, the way the product is collected and aged and loved, versus like they say in the hand rolled movie, it's not a nicotine delivery device.
That movie was good, by the way. I really enjoyed that. It did a good job of telling the story.
Yeah,
it really did. And
so that's one of the things that we learned, is that the consumer education piece goes way beyond just the men and women who smoke premium cigars and have a humidor on their dresser at home. It goes to their family members and friends and coworkers who don't necessarily understand. I mean, because they've had it beaten into their heads their whole lives. That it's a simple, narrow answer, which is tobacco bad. Yeah. There's no nuance to it whatsoever. And trying to figure out those ways to help people understand that your friends and family members who smoke premium cigars are not they're not in the same risk category as somebody who smokes a pack or two of Marlboros a day. Mm-hmm. It's not even the same ballpark. It's not even the same. To quote from Pulp Fiction, it's not the same fucking sport.
Well, if anything that may be good that comes out of all this FDA fiascos and hoops and stuff that we're having to deal with, they've done more studies, and they're not able to link all the stuff that they wanted to link to cigar smoking. They're not finding all these health consequences. They're not finding all this youth access. And so in a way, that's been kind of helpful, because trust me, they're spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to try and connect the dots of why cigars should be regulated like cigarettes. And guess what? The data's not coming back. It's not even coming back what they thought it would be. Yeah. So in a way, maybe that helps us. I don't know.
No, I agree with, and it is interesting that even, the FDA using, like you said, using taxpayer money to fund studies, essentially having the preconceived notion in their minds that by the time the study's over, they're going to prove that the health effects of one or two cigars, an average of one or two cigars a day, for somebody, age 30 to 50 is going to be the exact same range of health effects as somebody who smokes 30 to 50 cigarettes a day. Their own taxpayer-funded studies are coming to completely opposite conclusions.
Yep. They're validating what we've been saying all along, though.
Right. Yep. Right.
Because we didn't need $1 million study to figure that out. Just based on, the people that I've grown up with, the Avo Avesians of the world, and watching guys like Orlando Padron and all these other guys, Stanford Newman, people that I've worked with, that I've watched, that were productive their entire life and lived into their 90s. That's not normal, believe it or not. It's not normal to be in your 80s and working all the way through to your 90s. But there's so many guys in the cigar industry that's exactly what they did, and they loved every day doing it, every day. And that's actually, I know that's what kept Avo alive, was wanting to come down to the cigar store, smoke a cigar, and hang out with people. You take that social aspect away from that guy, and his life he wouldn't have any reason to get dressed and get out of the house every day. And so it's I say there's a lot of people. It's what actually keeps them going. And who was that World War II veteran, the oldest guy in America that passed away? He was 103 or
Oh, yeah.
104.
Yeah,
And
he was a
he
big
was,
cigar
yeah,
smoker.
he's like, man, I smoke cigars every day, and that's what he loves. And
Yep.
so, there's, again, we didn't need studies for it. Just I believe in what I see and in what I know, and that's what I have experienced.
Yeah.
Well, there's two campaign messages.
Oh,
Borysiewicz for president, and then our Canadian brother also
Prime Minister.
So
Yeah, listen, I love Canada. By the way, it's an interesting place. They got
I love Canada.
cigars are expensive as all get out there.
Yeah.
geez,
But
they are.
and they really, man, the cigar industry got abused in that country and
Yeah.
abused by the government. It was interesting. I saved this as a souvenir when I was over there. They literally sell marijuana joints prepackaged in a little plastic tube.
Yep.
And I was shocked that that didn't have plain packaging. Yet cigars in that country where cigar boxes have to be plain packaged. Like it's illegal to have a logo on a box. You have a box that looks like it did 100 years ago, and you can't have that anymore. But yet you had marketing on pre-rolled marijuana joints, and I'm like, these
Wow.
lines are getting crossed, right? And so I
had
saved
no
it, and I was
idea.
like, yeah, it was wild. But anyway, it is what it is. There's not a lot of people in Canada, so it's hard to fight the system
Mhm.
when you're so outnumbered, and it's a
Yeah.
big country.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that. That's so one of the things I wanted to also touch on is a couple different facets of the legislative and regulatory piece. And the first one I want to ask about is, as you know, as most people who follow even a little bit of cigar industry news, over the last few months, we learned that Glenn Loop is going to retire and step away as executive director of the CRA. I mean, he's a guy, we've had him on the show, loved having a conversation with him, and he's going to step away and from an organization that he had a huge role in creating, really. So what are your thoughts about the future of the CRA, and where do you see things going from here once he has his last day, behind the desk?
Well, I was one of the guys that was part of hiring Glenn. So seeing Glenn go, I'm not. I don't, even when we talk about it, I don't like. It brings up negative feelings for me because I like Glenn and I think he's a fantastic spokesman for the premium cigar industry. He loves it. And I believe that anybody. Let's talk politics in DC for a minute. If you're a lobbyist in DC, you're a hired gun. There's a lot of guys that are hired to represent industries that they don't know two shits about and have no passion for, but that's their job, right? That's who they're hired to represent. Then you have guys that are hired to represent an industry that actually love it.
Yeah.
And Glenn is one of those guys that loves it. And the problem that, it was Keith Park and I were the ones that got CRA going and off the ground. And then, we rounded up a great board of directors and a great support network for the whole CRA. But the end of the day, I said this 3 years ago at a TAA conference. We were down in Mexico, and the problem is it's the industry's running out of money, and we're a small industry, and we're fighting battles that are normally fought by giants like Altria and Reynolds and UST and stuff like this, big companies. And for them, when you're dealing with lobbying, which is very expensive, and then dealing with a regulatory scheme, FDA. FDA is normally dealing with things with companies like Merck and Pfizer and big money companies, right? And so here we are, this tiny industry that is trying to stay alive from a regulatory industry that is setting up rules that are meant for much, much larger industries. So we just don't have the capital to keep it going.
Yeah.
And that's why, one of the cool things about Facebook, it pulls up Facebook memories every day. And
Yeah.
you should see some of these memories. The other day, one popped up, and we're with Mitch McConnell in Washington, D.C., and this thing was from, I think it was from 1998. And it just goes to show you how long we've been doing this. And you added 12 years of lobbying, and then in the last 5 years, I believe it was 4 years, add on to the legal costs of these federal lawsuits. Now you've got a tremendous financial burden that's being borne by essentially maybe 18 companies, and 18 companies that aren't that big. And so this is just when the FDA this week kind of tried to use a stall tactic, and the federal judge sees through this, that this is simply a stall tactic, by saying that they might allow premium cigars to apply for like a waiver, if you will, or an exemption for having to go through this expensive pre-market approval process. Well, that's crazy. That's just them trying to delay it. It's a delay a game is what it is. And for every delay a game, remember, their lawyers that work for them are paid for us by taxpayers. They've got this crazy budget. They got this pot of money, and they just got to figure out how to spend it. They got more money than they know what to do with.
They're endless pockets, because they're
endless pocket, right? So now think of this. This is an art of war. And if you know your enemy has a finite resource and you have an infinite resource, which is the money stream, stall them out. It's a siege. It's like putting siege on a city. Surround it, and pretty soon they're going to starve.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening here. But really on Monday, because when I saw that happen Thursday about the FDA putting out that that what I call a false flag, but then the judge on Monday kind of saying, listen, you guys are clearly trying to regulate when you don't even know what you're regulating, and you're trying to force these guys to do stuff that there's not even a clear path of what they're supposed to do. So all I got to say is I think my gut is saying we're going to beat them, but I don't know. None of us knows until the decisions happen. But I hope that common sense and reason, everything in a court is supposed to be based on reasonable. What would a reasonable person do?
Yeah.
And so I hope we're going to win. I think we're going to win it. I don't know. We'll find out. We only have September 8th, so we got less than 30 days to figure this out.
So what is that? Let's say it's a win for the cigar industry. What does that mean for you?
I don't have to register my brands, pay all that money to the lawyers to fill out all these forms and send them into the FDA.
Yeah.
So for me, that's a lot. We have a lot of brands. You're smoking one of them right now, FSG and all these other brands that we have. We've got tons of them. So yeah, it's means that we're not going to have to pay that money for the lawyers to fill out all those forms. I've looked at the forms, and trust me, anything the government does, it's not simple. It doesn't matter whether it's applying for your, like if you're trying to apply for immigration or anything, they write forms that the average guy can't figure out. And so that's why you have to hire like a tax attorney or an immigration attorney or an FDA attorney.
Yeah.
Because they're very misleading on the questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and they're also, this is the key thing with tobacco regulations when it comes to lumping in premium hand-rolled cigars with big tobacco, with cigarettes, and even, I mean, the whole flavored discussion is a big piece of it too. But when you have these people writing the regulations and actually writing up these documents and these forms that have to be filled out and things like that, you're talking about people who have written these, that their expertise is at writing forms, but they don't know the first thing about the difference between they just and their mind works in a certain way where when they hear the word, and everybody's this way, when you hear the word tobacco, what happens in your mind? What is the first thing that happens in your mind when you hear the word tobacco?
Yeah, it's generally got a negative connotation.
Exactly. And they so again, their they're all lawyers. You know, these FDA people, they're attorneys. They're extremely skilled. They're very smart people, but they're experts at writing forms and writing regulations. They don't know the first thing about premium hand-rolled air-cured tobacco.
You talk about their expert at writing stuff, but let's think about how they write. You guys are in IT, so let's look at how QuickBooks or Amazon builds their platform. It's consumer friendly, right? You figure it out. Go to a government website and try to navigate your way through any of these long government forms. Generally, about 5 minutes into, you're like, well, this question is so vague. I don't know what they're even asking me. And then half the time you click on it, doesn't work either, by the way, because it's written on some kind of platform that was 20 years ago. It's had 32 updates. And so, you know, that's what we're dealing with. So, you know, anyway, we'll see where this goes. And a lot of those questions, by the way, were written and drafted by guys like Philip Morris that knew how to write these so that Philip Morris can navigate it, but nobody else can. So that's why regulatory schemes are usually, you know, tilted in one way towards the big guys.
Yeah. Well, and it's also good that this is not the first time that, you know, it also happened with the warning labels, where a judge came along and basically said to the FDA, and I'm way paraphrasing here, I'm really simplifying it, but the judge came along and said, hold on one sec. Jeff, are you still with us? I think we might have a connection issue, guys. Hold on one second.
Yeah, we have frozen Jeff. We are still live.
Okay.
And we're still good. So Matt, why don't you want to finish your point while we wait for Jeff to reconnect here?
But it's talking about the warning labels that a judge wrote ruling on a few months ago, and then most recently here with the deeming regulations and substantial equivalency. And that is that so far there have been judges a few times that have looked at all this when the CRA or the PCA presents something and says, here's why we're saying that this is unconstitutional, why it's a violation, things like that. So we're going to get Jeff back on here. One moment here.
I'm back. I guess it looks like I'm on there twice now.
Yeah, sorry about that. There we go.
This isn't Zoom, is it? The Chinese are listening in, man. They know that I'm on to them.
No, it's definitely not Zoom. But I don't know how far, but basically what I was saying was this has been multiple times now where a federal judge has looked at everything that was presented by either a filing from PCA or CRA or and looked at everything and said, the FDA has not done their job according to their own regulations.
True.
Their regulations don't make sense. What they're asking for from these companies has not been spelled out correctly. It's not been spelled out plainly, and that is a good thing. But it goes back to what you were saying, Jeff, as far as the art of war and surrounding the enemy's camp is. And Charlie Minato said this when we had him on the show a few weeks ago. We had a bunch of industry guys on, and Charlie said it's a nice feeling, but in the end, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a victory, because all the judge is saying is that the FDA needs to go back and fix the way they have everything written out. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. The judge never said that the FDA isn't allowed to do this. The judge just said that the FDA has not provided the correct level or clarity to their own regulations. So all that means is the FDA now can just say to themselves, okay, get their team in a room and say, okay, here's what we have to fix. Here's the things that we have to fix about these, the way these, the verbiage, the way this is written, the way that's written, put things in the right order, and then resubmit it. And then eventually, it might not be next year, it might not be the year after that, but eventually the judges are going to say, yeah, you've really, from a pure constitutional standpoint, you've covered all your bases. And then that could be, you know, the the nail.
Charlie Minato's right. And
Yeah.
that's why we got to get down to a judgment. And you know what? Here's the bad part. Philip Morris had some issues with some of the regulatory issues right out of the gate. They were able to get in front of a judge and get a judgment very quickly. And that's because money talks. And when you got an army of lawyers and big fat checkbooks, you can do things like that. And that's why we're not, the premium cigar industry is not designed to work in that regulatory scheme. So we've got some problems. Let's see what happens. We'll have an interesting conversation in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have to, because the 8th is coming up. So we'll see what happens.
And my biggest hope, I've been saying this for years, my biggest hope, and I think the biggest win we could possibly see, and like you said, Jeff, we need a judgment. We need something that expressly states that premium hand-rolled cigars are exempt. The exemption for premium hand-rolled cigars, that to me, that is the hill to die on. That's my personal opinion. That's the hill to die on.
Well, real quick, a lot of people don't like talking politics, but I will say this, and I'll say this because I feel I have to, is that elections matter. This next election matters. The FDA, nothing worse has happened to us in the last 4 years with the FDA. And I can tell you that if the administration changes, the pressure points change. And the FDA is going to have free will again and a lot of support to go hard on us. The second thing that's important is the state, 2 states south of there in Illinois. Dick Durbin, who's a ranking member of the Democratic Party in the Senate, has another tobacco bill. I don't know if you guys were familiar with the S-chip cigar tax, the federal cigar tax that occurred in 2008. There's another S-chip type of federal cigar tax that doubles it again. And the bill's already baked and sitting there in the Senate. It's got like 8 different co-sponsors. They're all part of an anti-tobacco coalition, and we're in it. And so, when you see how laws are passed, most bills have been staged for years ahead of time.
Right.
Waiting for leadership to change, waiting for majorities and minorities to change, and waiting for administrations to change.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, there's another one. No one's really talking about it enough. But it's there. And so we have to be very, very careful on that. And it's not that there's a president like if Joe Biden wins that he's against cigars. That's not even how it works.
Right.
There's coalitions that work within the party. The party, you have an anti-tobacco coalition that'll work within the party. And that coalition doesn't get resistance from the rest of the party. And so that's how it sails through. So we've got some major challenges coming up that hinge on this election.
Yeah. And the parties, like you said, from changing minorities and majorities, presidential administrations, and so many different changes that happen throughout government, a new Supreme Court seat, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The people who, not necessarily the Supreme Court as much, but senators, congressmen, representatives, presidents, that kind of thing, governors, mayors, they make decisions based on one thing. I don't care what party they're. They make decisions based on what thing? One thing. Will this get me re-elected?
Or political contributions too, though.
Political contributions as well. And if they believe that whatever it is they're putting forward will gain them affinity with their constituents and make their constituents happy, regardless of whether or not it's true, whether it's right, whatever it is, if they believe that it's going to gain them favor with their constituents, then they believe that, therefore, that their constituents are going to continue to vote for them. And if there are a lot of people, and again, this goes back to the consumer education piece, where there are tens of millions of people out there who either don't realize that consuming a premium cigar is different than consuming a cigarette. They either don't know or they don't care.
The latter is true, that they don't care. We've already worked with Dick Durbin for the last 15 years. Yeah. I've met with him. Other retailers from Illinois have met with him, and we have explained the premium cigar situation to him, the category, everything. He understands, but he comes back with the same answer. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's had a family member that died from lung cancer from cigarettes, but him doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So you know you're not going to change that, but also you have to realize there's for every force on one side of an issue, there's another force on that's pushing and has money with them as well.
Yep.
So there's large health groups that have money and that will they contribute a lot of money. So
And this is where we come full circle for the CRA, the original question that put us down this. So, Glenn Loop leaving the CRA, I think that's a big loss for
it is.
both, our legislative fighting and all the relationships that Glenn had. Where do you see the CRA in the next year?
Well, a lot of this depends on what's going on with IPCPR too. Look at these guys; they just laid everybody off. I don't know if they hired anybody back or not. I saw Scott put out a couple emails, but I don't know. They're certainly not full force.
The first announcement was that they furloughed everybody, which was 14 total employees, that they were furloughing everyone, including
himself,
Scott Pierce. That everybody was gone. But then about 6-7 days after the furlough was to have begun, it was announced that Scott, and I apologize, I don't recall his name right now, but one other gentleman, they're the only two that are not on furlough right now. Which we were a lot of us were very confused when we first heard about the furlough, because we thought, what you can't run it's like having a ship floating on the ocean with no crew.
Guess what? They don't have any money. If you don't have enough money to put fuel in the ship can't sail.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. You've had a trade show that was canceled, so they lost a lot of money there.
Right.
And you've got big legal bills piling up. The lawyers that are representing the premium cigar industry get paid a lot of money.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm telling you, everything comes down to, I like the saying of socialism. Socialism, it stops working when you run out of other people's money. And in this situation, the CRA, IPCPR, this industry is small. I'm telling you, it's running out of money. That's why we need a decision. We need to get something going. And that's why there's a problem there. But at the end of the day, we're still a country where individuals have a voice. We still have a system that I'm convinced, when I went up there in 2007 as an individual, no lobbyist, no nothing, just me sending emails and working a telephone, where it was able to gain access to members of Congress in both House and Senate, and high-ranking members too, by the way. And it's really important for people to have a great relationship with their local official, your local congressman and your state senator.
Yeah.
And so if you have those, politics are like bankers. A banker is always there wanting to loan you money when you don't need it, but when you need it, sometimes they're hard to find.
Yeah.
Politicians are the same way. You've got to have those relationships as a business owner, whether small business or not. You need to have those relationships, because there's going to be a time where you need to make those phone calls. I was telling my wife about this earlier, a few days ago. With this COVID situation where bars, or it's easy to close down bars but leave everything else open. Well, I find that to be a very unfair situation, where you can go to a sushi restaurant and supposedly have a drink and a meal and you're safe, but you go 3 steps over to a cigar lounge and you're going to die from COVID. That just does not make sense. Even though we could practice the exact same CDC guidelines, social distancing, temperature checks, use all those same precautions. But for some reason, if you serve a whiskey in a glass in a cigar lounge, that guy's going to get sick. Okay. Right. That doesn't make sense. So you've got to, in this situation, this is done on local levels. You have governors that are doing it. You have city councils and mayors, and you have county commissions. So that's why it's like, we support a lot of different politicians. And so you never know when you need to make that phone call and say, listen, can you help me get through to, the person in charge of business and professional regulation and stuff like that. And so there's times you got to lean on those relationships. It might be 10 years that you never needed somebody, and then in 10 years something happens like this, and it's like, listen, I need some help here. You know, these relationships matter. And the other thing about politics is that the guy that's your local state representative later becomes your state senator, later becomes a member of Congress, later becomes you know, most politicians continue a career in politics.
Yeah.
So it's important that you have those relationships and make sure the most important thing when it comes to anything is that, you know, you're either at the table when these things are being discussed or you're on the menu. So if you're not at the table when these things are being discussed, they're not going to know how this affects your industry. So you better make sure that you're there so you can at least advocate. And it's much easier to advocate before something is done. It's hard to change things once it's written down.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you think, or do you know, CRA have somebody in mind for taking the reins?
I have no idea. I'm not on the board of directors anymore. I still talk to the people there, but I don't pry. So I'm more of a listener, not an asker when it comes to trying to dig into stuff like that. I'd rather stay out of it.
But I would hope, I mean, just as a consumer and a member of CRA, I would hope that the moment that Glenn sat down and told the board that he was going to be stepping away, that immediately a search committee was formed to to find somebody with reins.
I got confidence in the guys that are on the board of directors. So, you know, let's see what happens. It's their business on the line, just like the rest of us. So we can't go sailing without a captain. We can't have a ship that doesn't leave port. So let's see what happens here.
Yeah. And if you guys aren't familiar with the CRA and you're not a member, just go out to, cigarrightsofamerica.org, and they make it incredibly easy to find information about what is going on legislatively, both locally and nationally.
Yeah.
And they'll give you all the numbers. They even have letters pre-written. It's an amazing tool, and I encourage everybody, if you enjoy this product, if you enjoy this culture, to be that. Yes, we are a small industry and a small culture, but we have a voice. And the CRA has done a wonderful job of providing a platform for our voices.
Yeah.
And it's not a big ask either, by the way, a political ask. What I'm saying is that we have a lot of customers that are really, that are tied into politics. They're local community leaders and, the politicians and things like that. And at the end of the day, the simplest ask for a consumer is that has somebody's ear in politics to say, listen, man, the cigar lounge is different. Can we make sure that these guys aren't getting hammered? Like, what we're trying to do, you're trying to protect kids and all that other kind of stuff. But let's make sure that we're not knocking out the local cigar shop or the local cigar lounge that, I like to frequent. And honestly, it's sometimes as easy as that. Because they're like, oh, no, we're not trying to hit that guy there. No, I know that place has been there since, 50 years. It's right in the corner there. It's not that hard of an ask. And that's all it takes is just for a individual's voice to be heard.
Yeah.
But if you don't bring it up, sometimes they're like, oh, I didn't. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I wasn't really going after the cigar guys. I'm going after that vape category, the kids in school that are vaping or something. That's what they're trying to do. Right. So a lot of times it's just a matter of bringing it up because we always get caught up in those things that are either, vape has been a big issue last year. We haven't heard much about it because of COVID, but last year vape was a hot topic when a few people dying from trying to vape, who knows what. I'm sure it wasn't nicotine that they were trying to vape. Yeah. But anyway, so you saw how quickly things happened after that. So it's important that we at least have a voice.
Yeah. So for the last few years, we saw attendance decline a little bit at the PCA, the IPCPR trade show. Very beginning of 2020 in January, the big four cigar companies announced they would not be exhibiting at the trade show. And then COVID happens, which it's not just the premium cigar industry. COVID's changed everything. But, then the inevitable answer finally came that the PCA trade show was going to be canceled. What are you thinking for 2021 and beyond? Do you think we're going to see the trade show return?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
If they're able to, which I think we will be out of this COVID thing come November. I do see a show next year. However, there's two things that you mentioned. Attendance is a problem, and with attendance comes expense for the manufacturers. What's your return on investment? How much money does it cost to actually go to the show? And then for the retailer too, what does it cost to go? What is their return on investment?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a problem on that side of it. The big four that pulled out, that was more of a political move, of jockeying for position of who's there's a difference of opinion on FDA regulation. Obviously, the larger companies can handle it, the smaller guys can't. And if you can handle it, and your company is secured, and you already spent tons of money going through the process, a lot of people haven't. Well, it benefits you, the guy that spent all the money.
Yeah.
And they're not real happy when they spend tons of money on registering brands and going through all these regulatory hoops, and then finding out, hey, it was all for nothing, right?
Yeah.
So the big four, that was a different issue, but there is a problem.
But it still contributes to the overall health of the PCA as an organization.
Without a doubt. It hurts the trade show too. Listen, the show's not going to be as good without this big four, especially Druid State. That's one of the bigger, more fun atmospheres during the show. Everybody likes to go there.
Yeah.
They put on a great show at the show. So losing them hurts, and then Davidoff at the same time. Davidoff puts on historically has put on a really luxurious type of events, and very classy. So having them down there hurts the show as well. So there's some challenges. I would love to see the show move out of Las Vegas, and
amen.
I've been in this for 25 years, and the show used to bounce around, and there is not that opportunity to do that as much anymore. Where you could have it in Nashville, you have it in different cities, and
nobody lets you smoke indoors. Nobody lets you smoke.
However,
in the center.
There's still 3 cities that you could do that. You could get it done in Florida, you could get it done in New Orleans, you can get it done in Las Vegas. So I always look at it as like the problem. Orlando is a timeshare type of place. A lot of timeshares are sold here. Biggest problem with timeshare is you get tired of going back to the same place every year. Yeah. Hey, what are we doing this summer? Same thing we did last summer. Same thing we did the summer before. Where are we going? Same place we did 5 years ago. And you're like, man, I don't want to go there anymore. Let's go somewhere else. So having it in Las Vegas every year, you'll have that same effect. For a lot of retailers, this is their 1 week. They don't listen. When you have a cigar store or any small business, taking time off is something that's very difficult to do when you have a very small business. Yeah. Because you're somewhat chained to that business. So by not having the opportunity to go to some different cities, it's just not as attractive. So going to Vegas is great, but not doing it every year. But if you can mix up the cities, and hey, let's go to Tampa. We'll be in a cigar city. We can go see J.C. Newman. We can go do this. We can do that. Let's go to Orlando. We go to, bring the wife and kids. We'll go to Disney World. Yep. Next year we're in New Orleans. Hey man, I always like getting those beignets and stuff and all that kind of stuff. You mix it up, right? Gives you something else to do, and gives you a reason to want to go see that. So, but now let's talk the business side. If you're Las Vegas Convention Center, they're going to say, listen, if you sign with us for the next 5 years, we're going to give you a really good deal. We're going to give you the 5th year free. Right. And the 4th year, we're going to give discounted, right? So there are incentives to do it in the same city, financial incentives. So you got to balance all this stuff out. And it's not as easy as when you're sitting on the outside. It's not as easy to look at all these factors as when you're actually having to make those decisions. But there's a lot of stuff at play right now. And I would love to see it move. If you keep doing the same thing that they've been doing in the past, the situation's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. Yeah. So right now is a critical time for the PCA to make the right moves. And I don't know whether it's going to happen. I don't know. I've been on the board in the past. I don't know what's going on right now in their future.
Yeah. One last thing in this kind of main segment of questions, and that's really kind of a lightweight question that you may have had asked you a dozen times, but if you do you have something that you would consider to be a desert island cigar
Yeah, the FSG that you're smoking right now.
Okay, there you go.
It's the easy question. I smoke those all the time. So I smoke probably the 2 of those a day. That's my go-to cigar.
And it is
Without a doubt.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's not a bad choice for a desert island cigar.
Mm-mm.
By any stretch.
That's it. Yep, that's it.
It's not too strong for. I mean, this I could smoke this in the morning with coffee. It's not strong at all.
Absolutely.
I'm a medium-bodied cigar guy, and that's why that one I love it. And that's my favorite cigar of all. And we make a lot of different cigars with FSG tobacco. Some of them are strong, intended to be strong. Some have a very Cuban-esque type of profile. The ones that Aganorsa makes for us, the Corona 20th anniversary, all of those very Cuban-esque because they're all using Corojo tobacco. Our Corojo and Aganorsa's Corojo. So that's a very Cuban-style cigar.
Yeah.
The one from Drew Estate, much more, Brazilian wrapper on, or you can get the broadleaf, but I prefer the round one with the Brazilian. The broadleaf is a little bit stronger, and so I'm more of a medium-bodied cigar guy. And this Finca Santa Fe that we make with the FSG in it too, very Cuban-esque type of cigar. So, and then the American itself, that's a little strong too. That's a heavier cigar too. I'm smoking one now, but it's 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I'm not going to fire up an American in the morning. It's just a little too heavy for me.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's move into this week's Smokabulary word. And Smokabulary, guys, as you know, it's always brought to us by AJ Fernandez. Born and raised in Cuba, AJ Fernandez now produces unparalleled premium cigars in Esteli, Nicaragua. The day-to-day operations at Tabacalera AJ Fernandez are managed under the watchful eye of Mr. Fernandez himself in order to ensure superior quality. The AJ Fernandez portfolio of premium cigars provides blend, strength, and flavor profiles to match the preferences of any premium cigar consumer. Whether it's New World, Dios de Gloria, San Latano, Enclave, or Bellas Artes, you are sure to be satisfied with a premium cigar from AJ Fernandez. So, and Jeff, I'm going to want your input on this Smokabulary word for this week. This week's Smokabulary word is blue mold. And so for our viewers and listeners, I did a little bit of research on blue mold specifically, and I'm going to try to pronounce this right. Peronospora tobacina. It's a fast spreading fungus that can basically destroy an entire crop if it's not managed properly. So, Jeff, have you ever had any experience seeing this damage a crop, and how can it affect a tobacco crop? Well,
the spores travel through the air, so they can actually go a long way. The U.S. Department of Agriculture used to, I think they still do actually. If you Google blue mold, they used to show the paths of the spores. So it attacks all tobacco, cigar tobacco, cigarette tobacco, and everything. But it supposedly generates from down south. So moving from the Caribbean up, and it attacks fast. But we have never experienced it at the FSG farm ever.
Yeah.
I hate to say that because I'll probably get it tonight. Well, actually, we don't have tobacco on the ground right now, but in the fall, who knows? But blue mold, it's a fast acting fungus that attacks the leaves, puts spots on the leaves, and will ruin the crop within a day or two. There are fungicides to help. Once you get it, it's hard to get rid of it. But there are systemic fungicides that can sort of inoculate the plant. But the fungicides that have been used for blue mold have been used for 30 to 40 years. And one of the things about fungicides, it's sort of like penicillin, loses its effectiveness over years and years and years.
Yeah.
So it still is a problem. But I think a lot of it has to do with El Nino years, La Nina years, humidity in the atmosphere, trade winds, things like that. But it's more of an issue for guys in Central America and Cuba and the Caribbean than it is for us. I will say this, that the disease that I hear more about from fellow tobacco growers is black shank. And that seems to be more of a problem that guys are having to combat sometimes in Caribbean and Southern farms that are below us, whether it's in Cuba or Dominican Republic. We have something that looks like blue mold. It's called the target spot. It's also caused by a fungus, but it's not from spores in the air. It's from spores that are in the soil. And it's a naturally occurring fungus in the soil. It's not a bad fungus. We need it because soil is a living organism.
Yeah.
If you didn't have the bacteria and the fungus in the soil, you would never have the decomposition of organic material. So every season when leaves fall on the ground or grass clippings are on the ground, if you didn't have active soil, those would never biodegrade and turn back into nutrients for the plant to uptake later. So you have to have an active soil. But the issue that we have is that fungus that's in the soil that's decomposing dead plant material, the dust will get up and those spores can settle on the leaves and try to start eating green leaves, and that's where we can have a problem.
Okay. So guys, that is this week's Smokabulary word, brought to you by AJ Fernandez. And now it's time for
Numero de los Muertos. All right, guys. Numeros de los Muertos is brought to you by Oveja Negra Brands. They bring you premium smoking experiences forged from tobacco, time, and talent. Comprised of Black Label Trading Company, Blackworks Studio, Dissonant, and Emilio, Oveja Negra Brands provide smokers uncompromising blends renowned for their flavor and lasting impression. Oveja Negra, where art and tobacco collide. Join the flock. Visit ovejanegracigars.com to learn more. All right, guys.
All right.
We got a toughie, but a fun one.
All right. And
so
as always, viewers, join the conversation if you have guesses along the way. And Jeff, this is for all of us. We're going to play 20 questions here. So if anybody got guesses, throw them out. What's our number?
The number is 5 a year in the U.S.
I hate low numbers. That's the hardest ones to guess.
Yeah, but these are the most fun. These are fascinating. So this one is fascinating. So I'll give you a little something to go on. This happens to about 60% of the population at least once in your lifetime. And it is rarely dangerous. But obviously 5 people a year do fall victim to this.
And the 5 is in the U.S. only.
Correct. This is U.S. only.
And how many a year are affected by it but don't die?
2.4 million.
When you say 5,
well,
that are victims, that means they're gonna die from this?
Correct. Only 5 people die from this, and that 2.4 million, that is when this is when it's serious. So
chickenpox.
Only 5 people die. It is not chickenpox. It most commonly happens with children.
Bee sting.
Ooh, not bee stings. Tonsillitis.
Tonsillitis.
That's a good guess. And it is not.
That's not it? Is it the appendix? Not the appendix.
Measles.
It is not measles.
Chad says dog bites. Is it dog bites?
What's funny about that guess is that was actually that was the number that we had for Jeff the first time he was a guest.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It is not dog bites.
Jim says hepatitis.
It is not hepatitis.
Okay, mostly affects children.
And I would assume that everybody in this room has had this happen.
Okay, that changes things. I was about to say epilepsy. John says smallpox.
It is not smallpox.
Amoeba. No, not that many people have it amoebas. Never mind.
Yeah, not an
2.4
amoeba.
million.
I will. I'll give another clue. It happens in more arid environments.
Is it algae?
It is not algae.
Okay, because that's been more and more common.
2.4 million.
10 or so years.
Chad, it is not strep throat.
Most of us have had this happen.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
We need another clue.
All right. So
You said arid environments?
correct. It is more common in arid environments.
Asthma.
It is not asthma. It is not hay fever. Or just fever. It is neither of those. Think sinus.
I mean, are we talking a simple sinus infection?
Mm-mm.
No.
Bloody nose.
Jeff
Is that-
for the win.
Wow. Nailed it. That was a tough one
Yeah.
this week. Bloody nose.
Yep. 5 people a year die from a bloody nose. And that doesn't include people that have like a thin blood disorder or, anything like that. It is literally 5 people die from a serious nosebleed.
I wonder if it's from blood loss or choking.
So, and actually that it's both. It can be either, I should say. Either it is from blood loss or it is from choking on it in their sleep.
Where do you come up with this?
I've had to start digging.
Yeah, he's been doing this for 70 shows now.
Yep.
And it's funny because, not funny, it's ironic because when I was a kid, I was probably, I was little. I was 3 years old, maybe 4 years old. I wasn't playing. I was basically just getting in the way. My brothers and some of the neighbor kids playing stickball in the alley behind the house when I was a little kid. And I somehow, who knows, got in the way when somebody was swinging at a pitch. I just ran right in front of them when they're swinging at a pitch. And I caught the stick square on the bridge of the nose. And it looked like a horror movie. And I get all cleaned up and everything. But for the next probably 5 years, I had chronic nosebleeds.
Wow.
Almost weekly, where it would just open up and it was terrible. But then it just went away. I don't think I've had a nosebleed since I was 10 years old.
I'm with you.
But getting cracked on the nose playing stickball, I don't know, maybe it just loosened something up where, the blood vessels up there were weakened for a few years until I got older.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when you fly, Matt? Does it ever pop up then?
No, it doesn't. The one thing, this is the weird thing though, I get severe headaches, especially sinus headaches, right up in the forehead, where it seriously, when I fly, it feels like my forehead's going to crack open.
I've seen people get nosebleeds from that.
It's been that way ever since I've been flying. It feels. Usually I have to take something really powerful just to keep the pain down because the pressure from changing elevations, I feel like my head's going to snap in two. It's crazy. But fortunately, no nosebleeds.
Well, that was a good one.
That was a good one.
So yeah, that was this week's
Numero de los Muertos.
That was a good one. I like that. All right, so a little lightning round, Jeff. Last time we had you on the show, we had the useless fact of the week, and thank God we got rid of that segment because it was just not that was a non-starter. But we have some not long after you were on the show last, we changed things up a little bit. So these are some fun non-cigar related questions. If you could choose to hear the thoughts of one living person for 10 minutes, who would it be and why?
Living person right now. The judge in this FDA trial.
I love it.
That is a great answer.
Yeah.
That saved me a lot of tension or whatever, right?
Yep. Although I have to believe that a lot of what goes through that judge's mind is, God, the people at the FDA are morons.
I would love to know where he's at.
Yeah. All right. So next question. If you were about to get into a fight, what soundtrack music would come on?
Rocky.
Yeah. It's classic. You can't go wrong with that. All right. So choose one of the following. You could hit a home run as a starting pitcher. You could score a touchdown as a defensive lineman. You could score a hockey goal as the goalie, or you could score a soccer goal as the goalie.
Wow. I'd say a touchdown as a defensive lineman.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I like to watch those big guys, the way they run. And they're just so clumsy, and they look like a rhinoceros coming down the field. Yeah.
Yep.
Like, I remember when the Fridge was playing for the Bears, man. When they gave him a handoff during the Super Bowl, here comes the Fridge coming through, man. It was like, anyway. Yeah, I like seeing that.
Yeah. So what's the number one piece of advice that you would give a brand new premium cigar consumer?
Don't inhale.
Yes.
Amen. Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a friend last night who's not a cigar smoker, but he found out that he didn't know that I did this cigar podcast and all this stuff, and he said, yeah, I tried a cigar once years ago, and it turned me off to it because I accidentally inhaled. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I'm glad you said accidentally inhaled, because you knew at the time you were smoking the cigar you weren't supposed to inhale. He said, yeah, I knew I wasn't supposed to. It was just totally by accident that I inhaled, and I got really sick, and I haven't touched the cigar since.
That's why we tell everyone a lot of people have their first cigar, Corona cigar. Most of them don't inhale, and especially if they were a cigarette smoker or are a cigarette smoker.
Right.
And I'm like, don't inhale, and it's the best analogy is like, chewing tobacco or snuff. You don't eat it, and if you do, you're going to get sick. So if you inhale a cigar, you're not gonna feel too good. So yeah, that's probably the most important thing that most tobacconists need to make sure. Not only tobacconists, but friends that say, hey, have a cigar with me. Make sure you tell them that, because otherwise they're going to be, they're not going to tell you they're feeling sick, because they're going to feel like, they're not tough enough to smoke it. Well, you're not supposed to inhale, guys. So
yeah,
number one advice.
All right. So this week's notable smokable. Jeff, I think we did this last time you were on the show. Just something interesting that you've smoked recently. It could be from any brand at all. Something that you smoked recently and said, man, this is really. And it could be also something that's been on the market forever that you just haven't smoked in 10 years. Is there anything recently that you smoked that just really kind of piqued your interest?
It wasn't that recent, but that one from Reese, the JSK with the CBD,
the nugs.
The nugs.
Yeah, the nugs with the CBD in it. The one with the higher level in it.
The 100 milligram.
Yeah, the 100 milligram. When I smoked that, I really liked that cigar. It tasted really good. You could not detect any off notes from the CBD.
Yep.
And I've been told that CBD tastes bitter, but that cigar, regardless CBD or not, really tasted good. And so I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, it's a good cigar.
Mm-hmm.
I actually prefer, just because I've tried both. I think they're both good, but I actually like the 20 milligram. And I agree, you can't taste the CBD. But it's I think it's a good cigar.
I like the 100 because of the Maduro. Just had a really good flavor to it. So That was probably the most surprising, and also it's got really good tobacco in it.
Yep.
Which I didn't expect it to have as good of tobacco used in the cigar as it does. So that was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. What was yours this week, Garrett?
Luchador.
Oh wow! I haven't even heard that name in a while.
I know.
That's Sam Lucia.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
And
I forgot about the Luchador.
I had too, and we were doing kind of a little swap thing the other day at the shop, and I saw that in somebody's humidor. I was like, "What can I give you for that cigar?" Because I haven't had one in I don't know how many years now, and did a trade and smoked it right away, and that was a damn good cigar.
Yeah, it's a good cigar. I like it.
That was probably made a long time ago too. Now, Sam, by the way, is one of the most talented cigar rollers that a gringo that taught himself or learned how to roll. Man, he is good at it, and that is. I was so impressed when he was doing the shows back when Nub was released. And I was like, man, this guy's he's not faking it. He's damn good at rolling cigars. So I thought that was really cool. That was a long time ago. That was an awesome launch when they did Nub back then.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, it's ironic because mine is an Oliva product, and I revisited an old faithful cigar that I've loved forever, as long as I can remember, the Oliva Serie G Robusto.
Yeah, nice cigar.
Cameroon wrapper, simple, inexpensive. I found it in a tray in one of the bottom shelves of my humidor, and I don't have a clue how old it was. It's a cigar I've loved for many years.
Now that was the box press one, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's a really nice cigar because it's got a little sweetness to it, and I find that the Series G is a cigar that's better, newer than if it's been sitting around for 3, 4, 5 years, because the Cameroon on that cigar I think is even more flavorful when it's quote fresher, let's call it, versus aging is not. Connecticut cigars and some Cameroon cigars, aging is not necessarily its friend because it kind of can lose some of its flavor. But I like that little bit of sweetness that's on the G, and they're a great value and well made.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So for viewers and listeners, I want to give you an idea. Next week on August 18th, we're going to talk to George Rami, and he is from Camacho Cigars. And we're going to learn about the new Camacho Nicaragua, the newest 2020 version of the Camacho Liberty, and much more about Camacho. So be sure, as always, tune in again next week. Jeff, give us a final idea. Where is the best place to get for our viewers and listeners to get all the best up-to-date information about Corona Cigar and FSG?
CoronaCigar.com. Just get on the website and get on our email list. That's the best way. And then also, Florida Sun-Grown Tobacco Group. It's a Facebook group. That's a really. I do a lot of little impromptu videos on that. And here's one of the things: Facebook plays around a lot of games with cigar-related content, as you guys, I'm sure you know.
Oh yeah.
Unless you visit Corona Cigar's Facebook pages, you will not see them on your feed, and that's true with any cigar company. They intentionally blacklist the cigar company, and we can't advertise either. So you'll never see a sponsored thing in there from Corona Cigar. So it's kind of hard to see any content from us on there unless you go to Corona Cigar's Facebook page. But if you go to the Florida Sun-Grown Tobacco groups show up on your feed, right? And so you'll see that. And so I'm always posting stuff what's happening at the farm or with FSG or what we're doing with tobacco. Last live video I did, we were planting a cover crop. I was at the farm today. I was going to show where that cover crop is right now because it's actually about 8 inches tall and it looks really pretty and green. But maybe I'll post a picture later. But that's probably the quickest, the best news feed on that. And then again, we do cattle too. So sometimes I did during COVID. Everybody was so freaking bored, right? And they were just. I mean, my wife's watching some kind of I don't know, where people bring people over for a 90-day or 30-day fiance or something like that. Anyway, there's always crazy shows people are watching. And the alligator guy or whatever, the tiger guy. So anyway, we did hell, I did a video from the cab of the tractor of how to run a John Deere and put the mower out and stuff. So, there's always kind of different stuff in there that's not always just the tobacco farm. Sometimes we'll show what we do with the cattle too, just to keep it interesting. I mean,
Oh yeah.
people are starved for entertainment, put it that way.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Florida Sun-Grown Tobacco Group.
All right.
Awesome.
Jeff, for your second appearance on our show, we're grateful. We had a great time, and I hope you had some fun with us. And we look forward to being able to actually, sit down somewhere together and actually enjoy a cigar face to face.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, and hopefully everything up in your state and in your city is going to get back to better days. And you're in our thoughts, put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah,
appreciate
it. All our viewers and listeners, as always, we appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah, thanks for the love.
You guys give us love. You spend your time with us, and honestly, it means the world to us. So thank you for continuing to watch the show and listen to the show. If you have any questions, we always say this, make sure send us an email directly from the website, howaboutthatcigar.com. Follow us on social media at HBT Cigar. And until we see you next time, burn cigars,
not bridges.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.